For years, I worked with a giant screen, pen in one hand, and a keyboard placed off to the side on a wobbly little table. It was less than ideal. And then when I switched to the iPad, I thought, cool, no more keyboard. These gestures are all that I'll ever need. I kept trying new shortcut solutions like mini Bluetooth keyboards, specialty pad things, hopes, dreams. Nothing really stuck for me. That's until I tried this TourBox Elite Plus. Not only does this thing actually work for my purposes, it's fun to use. I feel like I'm playing video games or something. Like literally looks like a video game remote, and that's not by accident. It's on purpose. The reason why they did that is so that you can use it without looking at it. One of the main issues for me trying to remember key commands is that, you got to look at the keyboard, especially with some of these custom pads made for just a specific thing. They still are just regular keys that all feel the same. Here, they all feel different, and it has like haptic feedback, and it's just so much easier to remember, at least for me. A while back, I was sent this Pen Tips pad to try out. I talked about it, I think, a couple times in videos. It's mainly made for Procreate, and it has key commands for a lot of the stuff in Procreate. So if you work in Procreate, this could be really useful. But because I mainly work in Fresco, some of the keys just didn't work, and currently there's not a way to customize this. And because of that, I ended up not using it. That customization and the ability to like fully control all the different keys and map them to whatever you want with the TourBox Elite Plus made it quickly work its way into my workflow, both on my desktop and on the iPad. Although it has proved to be great with my drawing process and really making things more efficient and easier, I actually started using it first on my computer in DaVinci Resolve editing video. Even though you can fully customize all the different keys, there's built-in presets for a lot of different apps already existing that you can just turn on. And that was the case for DaVinci Resolve, but I ended up changing a few of those things just to match the way that I work when I'm editing video. So as I mentioned, before the iPad, I did all of my work on a Wacom Cintiq display tablet, and I had my keyboard off to the side so I could do key commands while I was drawing, because the Cintiq didn't have the gestures and all that stuff and like able to zoom in and out. So even though it felt like I was constantly doing some sort of key command on the keyboard, I used a pretty minimal amount of commands. It was hard for me to remember a lot of them and actually be able to do them while not looking at them, but all those things were kind of crucial to my workflow and required having that keyboard set up next to me. When I ended up switching my workflow to the iPad, I was working in apps that were designed for the iPad, so the gesture control was really well worked into it, and it really made a lot of the stuff that I needed the keyboard for superfluous. But when you're trying to like zoom and do all this stuff, it's not as quick because I'm like holding a pencil. So if I want to like pinch and zoom, I have to either use the other hand. It's not ideal. It's not perfect. Although a lot of the gestures make a keyboard superfluous and work really well, there are some things that having shortcuts and a keyboard type situation are really helpful for, like easily adjusting your brush size or just having shortcuts for things you do on a regular basis that you don't want to have to kind of go into a menu for. Although I do nearly all of my illustration work on the iPad, mostly in Adobe Fresco, I still use Adobe Photoshop on my computer from time to time, especially when I'm doing some animation stuff that requires like a full video timeline. Although Photoshop can be a great animation tool and has a lot of capability and works really well, especially because you can use the drawing tools from Photoshop, without proper shortcuts set up, it can be very tedious and annoying. And because I used this a lot in the past, I had set up some actions to just like quickly do things like make a new frame in the length that I want it to be, as opposed to just having it go super long, which is very annoying. If you've ever animated in Photoshop, you will know. And then just little things like toggling the onion skin on and off, and then still having the brush adjustment settings all in there, moving around your timeline. All of that stuff I was easily able to assign to different buttons on the TourBox Elite, making the process so much better. And I don't need another plugin, I don't need anything. I just make the actions and set them to a key command and assign it onto here with the TourBox console app, which is super easy to use. One of the things that I really like about it is there's so many options for buttons on here and you can get confused looking at it, but if you just tap one of the buttons, it shows that key and then you can assign whatever you want it to do. I also find these buttons so much easier than just regular key commands. Like even if I just had the keyboard in front of me and I was looking at it and have to remember stuff, I think I have maxed out my storage space for key commands at this point. I just have such a hard time remembering. They're just random keys and I'm supposed to tie them to something else, and like there's only so many mnemonic devices. Here, I can set them in a way that makes sense to me, or I can like group different kinds of things, like for example, transform tools like the magic wand and the lasso, or like selection where I'm inverting a selection or deselecting, all these things, or having a scroll wheel to increase my brush size, and then I can tap the button to like activate the brushes. So if I'm not using a brush, I just tap it, then I'm in the brushes, and then I change the size with that same knob. It's delightful. So let's talk about Fresco. There's not a built-in preset as of recording this, and to be honest, I was a little skeptical about it actually being that useful because there's not really a ton of keyboard shortcuts for Fresco in comparison to other apps. I wish there were more, but there's not. But I figured I'd give it a shot and set up my own custom preset for Fresco, and I was pleasantly surprised about the amount of things I was able to put in here that are actually really helpful and really work well with my process. There are some things that I wish I could control with this thing that just don't work in Fresco, and it seems like that's a result of Fresco and maybe things that will be coming in the future, but there are things that aren't that big of a deal. For example, I can't really zoom in with this thing or like rotate my canvas. I have to use gestures for that. Even though there is gesture control with this thing, for some reason they're just not working in Fresco. Maybe I'm missing something, but it seems like it's a problem with Fresco and not this from what I've seen. But those ones aren't that big of a deal for me because I'm so used to doing those gestures with my fingers on the screen. But other stuff like the brush menus and like switching between pixel brushes and vector brushes, having an undo button, having quick key commands to switch between like the brush, the transform, the different select tools, all that stuff, turning on layers, going full screen, in and out of full screen, is pretty great. So it does most of the things that I wanted to do in Fresco, but there's so many options for buttons that I didn't have a use for in Fresco. But I was able to tie them to just like global system things. And one thing that I really like is I used one of these wheels for the brightness of the iPad display because sometimes I want to turn down the brightness, sometimes I'll turn it up, sometimes I give my eyes a break, so I like turn the brightness down while I'm drawing, but then when I'm going back to do color stuff, I want to make sure I'm getting an accurate view, so I toggle that back on real quick. Also, I have one set up to like switch between apps or like pull up my dock. All really useful things. Because it's so easy to customize and just make little buttons for tasks that you do on a regular basis, it makes me want to set this up for like everything. Like every app that I use, I want to have buttons on here, and I'm honestly surprised at how much I like this and how much I'm using it. Quite a few people had sent me a link to this thing saying, hey, are you going to try this out? Are you going to make a video about it? And I was just like, I don't know, maybe. I wasn't that interested because I had tried other things that just didn't work out well for me. I know that I work mainly in Fresco, and a lot of these things are geared towards Procreate or other apps. But again, the customization makes it work for anything. So if you're interested in checking out one of these bad boys, use my affiliate link below, helps out the channel, and you can use the promo code Chris10 to get $10 off your order, and that helps you out. So it's a win-win we got going on here. I think you're gonna like it. I like it a lot. Surprised how much I like it. Thanks, TourBox. Thank you. I think it's been a good talk, and I'll see you real soon, okay? Okay, bye. Thank you.